Hello, welcome back to the talking phase, where every good story starts with a little drama. This is the pod where we dive into the fun intersection of business, health, wellness, and dating. Whatever your goal, we've got you covered. This episode is brought to you by Personal Fav Co and LifeSpark.bio, your go-to for women's and men's health, wellness, and miscellaneous products. Check us out, personalfav.co. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Perfect. And lifespark.bio. And if you've got a wild founder or dating story or just want to say hi, email us at hellotalkingphase@gmail.com. I'm Conrad. I'm single. I'm 31. I'm an entrepreneur. I live in LA. And that's about it. Let's go to someone way more exciting. Today, we welcome Stephanie Elias. Stephanie is the founder of Personal Fav Co, a brand revolutionizing sexual wellness with clean, plant-powered products like Wet and Peak. I'm sure I mispronounced those, but we will get to it. With
No,
a mission to, what's that?
that was right.
Perfect. With a mission to keep it clean so you can get dirty. Stephanie is making waves in the wellness space, creating products that inspire confidence, pleasure, and self-expression. But Stephanie isn't just a brilliant entrepreneur. She's also navigating life here in Los Angeles. We're going to dive into her journey, talk through building a brand in a taboo industry, the highs and lows of LA living, and of course, her take on dating in the city. Stephanie, welcome to the pod. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here today. I'm actually coming to you live from Rancho Mirage, which is a desert city in the Palm Springs area.
Nice. And I think before we get in, we have to start with the fires. How are you doing? How have they affected you? Are you okay? Is that why you're out in the desert?
Yeah, I actually have a very sensitive respiratory system. I had asthma as a kid, so I have since removed myself from the area. Fortunately, myself and my co-founders' homes are totally fine. However, we have many, many friends that have unfortunately been directly impacted by this. So many people have lost their homes, unfortunately, as well as a few people who are still very much evacuated or can't get back to their homes because they're still without power or gas. So it's definitely a really crazy situation, just trying to take it one day at a time over here, but feeling really fortunate that, we haven't lost all of our livelihood, that our inventory in the valley is okay, and that we're able to contribute in certain ways where we've donated some of our products to the Altadena girls and to different shelters, including Moss and Venice, that's been distributing, which is where you and I met, and just trying to give where we can and volunteer where we can. It's just such a crazy situation. So I'm just grateful that I have somewhere I can stay right now.
Absolutely. No, I totally empathize, and glad you guys are safe and we're able to help in the ways that you can. On a lighter note, can you share a bit about your background and the journey that led you to create Personal Fav?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually moved out to Los Angeles to pursue a career in music and entertainment. So my career path is very nonlinear. I am definitely a creative business person and a entrepreneur by nature. In about 2016, I enrolled in a holistic health and nutrition coaching program, thinking that I wanted to move into health and wellness. I just wasn't sure in what capacity. Initially thinking that it was going to be nutrition. And then something crazy happened and I had a wild UTI experience actually at Burning Man in 2017. And I don't wish that upon my worst enemies. But I came home and just started thinking about how did this happen? Why did this happen so quickly? And kind of led to thinking about both the lubricated condom as well as the wipe that was in question in this interaction. After talking amongst friends and point blank asking if they had ever gotten a UTI, BV, or a yeast infection from a sex product, and every single person answering yes, I did a bit more research and realized most of the conventional products that you can buy at the drugstore or at sex shops are made with really harmful, irritating ingredients without pH in mind. It's a highly unregulated industry filled with toxins, chemicals, as well as petrochemicals, endocrine disruptors, phthalates and all these other things you don't want anywhere near your reproductive organs. Eventually, what came out of this kind of happy accident was the idea to launch a lubricant that looked so nice you could leave it on your bedside table and not feel weird about it. We wanted to start with lubricant because it's the most stigmatized product, yet 30% of vulva owners have to use it every single time for penetrative sex. And then that number is even higher for LGBTQ. And then not to mention anyone else who's using any kind of toys or other things in the bedroom. So it started there. We came to market in 2021 with our hero product, WET, W-H-E-T. It's a water-based, plant-based formulation. It's made with aloe, natural aphrodisiacs, and stevia, just in case it gets in your mouth. And then we came to market with our second SKU, Peak, which is our oil-based arousal enhancement product. It has full spectrum CBD and Bulgarian rose extract, which act as a vasodilator. So wherever it's applied topically, it stimulates blood flow to the area. And then our latest product that we just came out with in June of 2024 is a collaboration with another company called Biome. It's a cleaning wipe that is fully pH balanced and matched, plastic free, biodegradable, flushable, and at home compostable. So we are definitely driving the charge forward, as well as just trying to make sure that these products are commonplace and starting conversations so people understand it's really important to know what you're putting on and inside of yourself.
Amazing. I feel like, one, thank you for sharing. Two, I feel like you've definitely given that pitch maybe once or twice before, because that was incredible and very comprehensive.
Yeah, definitely tailoring it as we go.
Yeah, no, you crushed it. So you guys have a unique focus. I love the mission. But what kind of inspired? I know you talked about Burning Man in your personal experience, but specifically, how did you come up with the tagline? We keep it clean so you can get dirty.
I mean, for us, making sure that clean ingredients are at the core of all of what we do, as well as just, emphasizing the fact that our brand messaging and marketing is all based off of around like this caretaker jester juxtaposition. So we want to make sure that, we have your back, but we also want to be cheeky and fun because sex is fun and some people just are talking about it in a very like sterile or medical way. So we just wanted to make sure that it's something memorable, something that people can point to and understand. And, my co-founder Hannah and I had a lot of fun going through the brand ideation process and making sure that we wanted to have something that really stuck with you. So I think it really came out of that, as well as just making sure that, people understand that like we are kind of a sexual wellness apothecary and have your holistic health in mind. And that's, tantamount to every single thing. And it bleeds through like regardless of what kind of products we make and how they are made with your health in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people that I talk to, entrepreneurs in LA and New York, it seems like a lot of them have an idea, right? And they say, I want to do something, but I don't know what the time is right. What inspired you to take the leap and do this? And when you really did commit to it 100%, how did you think about, building a brand, approaching messaging and branding to make this approachable?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a process. It's always a journey. It started with one initial idea and actually a completely different partner that kind of fell apart. Then I tapped Hannah, who was actually at the Honest Company at the time. And didn't realize I was poaching her inadvertently when I asked her to come on board just as a consultant initially. And then just really a lot of brainstorming. I mean, meeting weekly, like going through branding exercises, finding the right designer to come on board to really help us build out the brand. We went through 4 designers until we found the right one because we really tried to do it as scrappy as possible, but you get what you pay for. So we really had to find the right one. We really wanted it to be a brand that feels both classic and current. I didn't realize how much I am an absolute crazy person as it relates to aesthetic as well as branding and messaging. So going through that process, making sure we have like a clear brand voice that also is relevant and feels relatable to multiple age ranges as well as genders and sexual orientations was something that we really cared about as we went through the process. And yeah, it's always moving. The naming, I went through 4 different names. Like, it's always crazy. Like, I think it's just keep going and see what really resonates. But I think you just really have to go for it and start. And if you don't really just kind of like test, iterate, and figure out what those milestones are. I mean, for us, the initial no-go point was just, could we make it? Like, could we make a clean formulation that actually is efficacious? And yeah, just really worked. That was sort of where we had landed, that no natural product was actually that good at actually delivering the right experience to the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like B2C direct to consumer companies, they come with their own challenges. But I think you touched on this a little bit, but what was the hardest part about building a consumer brand, and how did you guys approach that?
I mean, there's so many things that are hard about it. I think, yeah, like I said, the naming process alone is a whole, animal in and of itself. Finding the right chemist to work with and making sure that, I came to him with a wish list of ingredients and then iterating on the formulations. We must have gone through like 10 to 15 rounds, especially for the water base, but honestly for both. And also going back and forth and being like, no, please don't put glycerin in there. Like, it will cause UTIs, and just like simple things like that. I feel really grateful that, like, from a chemist and manufacturing standpoint, we really found the right one initially. And I think that's like the most important thing. Like, the product really is incredible, and feel like, someone has to really understand both chemistry as well as like clean to really get where we wanted to go as it relates to the initial formulations. But even so, like, sometimes we are like, oh, maybe we should add more of this ingredient for some of the next runs and other things. I think understanding like the regulatory around all of it, especially so you have packaging that's retail ready. We knew we were going to need to go into retail almost immediately. This wasn't a direct consumer brand. We also didn't necessarily foresee all of the censorship and red tape around marketing sexual wellness products, especially as like a pretty much very lean and mostly bootstrapped with minimal investment from angels to begin with. But yeah, I think there's just so many moving parts, as well as like just like the challenges of working with people and also finding the right people, like packaging people, like I said, the designers, finding the right web developer, rebuilding a website, all these things that like you don't foresee, and just making sure that you can like handle the challenges as they arise and pivot and move as nimbly as possible.
Totally. And can you talk a little bit more about that red tape in marketing? I'm curious because starting LifeSpark, we do men's fertility testing and supplements, and we can't make any direct medical claims, right? This will improve your testosterone or this will improve your fertility health. Is it similar in your sector? How do you guys deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about the claims, but also it's about the advertising and whether or not you can talk about pleasure. I mean, it's really interesting because, you see so many ads for like ED and like, men's health. But once you start talking about pleasure as it relates, especially to like female pleasure, it kind of gets flagged almost immediately from Meta and Google. Thanks, guys. So just trying to understand how we can better iterate and like run advertisements. We're constantly shadow banned on social media, and we've been navigating that since launch. It's been really hard to grow our pages. So we do a lot of gifting, and that's been like one of our biggest marketing strategies, as well as increasing our retail footprint, which people don't realize is actually part of our marketing, as well as catapulting us from a sales and revenue standpoint. So there's a lot. And I also think, we want to make sure we straddle the line between wellness and adult, given that sex shops are a big portion of our distribution strategy at the moment. And also, we've been with Goop since our launch year. Like, they've been amazing for us and some other wellness outlets, throughout the country and hotels. So just making sure it's like sexy and fun, but not like vulgar and in your face and raunchy is like a very delicate balance. But the advertising thing was not necessarily something I forecasted, pre-launch. And also, I mean, even with PR and editors, like, it's not a lip gloss that people can just try and be like, it's too sticky or it's great. Like, you should try it. A lot of people are still pretty uncomfortable talking about sex. So finding the right influencers, podcasters, and other partners for us who are willing to, you know, keep it clean and get dirty simultaneously and make sure they're spreading the gospel is also
Yeah.
been a whole mountain to climb.
What's your favorite marketing campaign or messaging that you've ever run?
Right now we're actually doing one with Good Wipes and Nixit and a few others, and it's like called the Booty Call campaign. So it's actually you text a number and then, you may enter to win like this bundle giveaway. That came to us through a PR friend who I'm just like really grateful because it's really creative. And I think it's interesting to have like almost like the anti Valentine's Day approach, kind of like for a good time call. So I do like that. And I also, we've worked with Marta Friedman, who's incredible for gifting. We do her gifting suites, participating in New York Fashion Week this past fall and making sure our new wipes product is getting into people's hands and they can realize that they can use it for all types of cleansing, whether you're after the gym or just on the go between shows, whatever it is. I just love getting product into people's hands and like hearing the amazing feedback just from direct humans.
Yeah, amazing. Transitioning a little bit. So you live in LA. I
I
guess
do.
you're out in the desert right now, but living in Los Angeles, how has the city shaped both your personal life and your professional vision for Personal Fave?
I mean, so I've lived in LA for almost the better part of 12 years. I did do a stint in New York a couple years ago, and I tried to go to Miami in 2015, but I've come running back. So I clearly love it. The way that it's shaped my personal and professional life, I feel like I've built such an incredible network of people as it relates to obviously the entertainment industry. But now, given that the startup space is where I reside, it feels like a really collaborative community. And I feel really, inspired by so many people, such as yourself, who are just finding these problems and trying to fix them. I also feel like I love being around creatives. Like feel like I am truly a creative at heart. So making sure that that is always something that's, whether it's in my personal life, going to different art shows or going to see premieres of things or making sure kind of like keeping a finger on the pulse of like what's happening in LA is always something that really motivates me. I also just like really didn't realize how much I love the nature aspect of it all, which like is so sad right now, but I feel like we'll get it back. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's always like I'm always inspired by just what's happening commonplace. And I also do love travel and feel like I'm such a lucky human who's gotten to live in a lot of different cities. So I feel like I've just pulled from a lot of those different experiences and it all has like bled through because it's interesting. Like if you ask someone from LA, they'll be like, you're like so East Coast, right? And then as I'm wearing like my Harvard sweatshirt. And then,
Yeah.
like, I was in New York a couple years ago, and immediately I was at a party, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Do you live in LA?" And I was like, "I just moved kind of from there, or I'm like bi-coastal right now." And he was like, "I can tell by the way you're dressed." And I was like, I don't know if I should be offended or flattered because I guess people in New York dress up a little bit, and I love like a casual, cool look, which is obviously more California inspired. So I think there's multiple ways and a through line in all of what we do, but I definitely want to make sure that the California, leads through in our brand as well as like everything that, relates to Personal Fave throughout.
Totally agree. Do you think that LA or the other cities you've lived in, dated in, do you think the culture influences how people view and talk about sexual wellness?
I do. I mean, I think like a city such as LA, people are a little bit more open because wellness is just something in all of California, quite honestly, that is super important to a lot of people. I feel like people take care of themselves and understand holistic health in a much different capacity than they do in other cities. That was really hard for me in New York a couple years ago. I like couldn't really find my like wellness groove and I literally got shamed for ordering salads. So I started eating gluten again and like kind of off the rails. because I just like didn't want to hear the "you're so LA" anymore. But yeah, I think it really depends. Like I think, I went to school in Miami and there's like a different undercurrent now than before, especially given like the stronghold of OnlyFans and how many people are actually down there and what people are talking about. And also just like, there's a lot of plastic surgery in both LA and Miami, but in Miami, it's just like kind of on another level. So I think there's like a little bit more of that like sexy dressing, the way people just like present themselves, the party lifestyle. So I think there is something to be said. However, in like places like New York or Boston, it's a little bit more foreign. It doesn't necessarily feel like everyone is ready to have the conversation. However, there are pockets and people who really are leading the charge and other brands that are, coming to market as well simultaneously. So it's interesting, but I do think there is something, kind of for better or for worse, just like more open in California to really like discuss sexual wellness.
I think one thing you guys do really great is tying the importance of sexual wellness with overall health. If you could offer, a piece of advice for couples or individuals to foster better communication, intimacy, and sexual health in relationships, what would it be?
I mean, I think it's just like prioritizing pleasure is so important to health and wellness, whether it's by yourself or with a partner or with a doll or whatever you're into. I think making sure that you have clear and honest communication about your likes and dislikes as it relates to sex and pleasure is very crucial to having like a strong bond with a partner. I also think there's like different ways to design your relationships. And also I know people who are really busy who like schedule sex dates or make sure they have, after kids, like 1 or 2 date nights scheduled a week, or make sure that they have a babysitter one night a week so they can like be out of the house when they have a really young child. And I also have heard about like that first weekend away after having a newborn. And I think making sure you carve out time to, maintain a relationship in whatever phase or stage it may be is just so important. And I think there's also like a level of like, not everyone's libidos are matched. And that's also okay. But I think you need to talk about it, about like what time you like to have sex, like how often, whether or not there's certain like kinks or fetishes you may be into, and like kind of getting that out on the table pretty early on in a relationship, which I don't necessarily think is always the case. And then you find out something about your partner and you're like engaged, and then you kind of freak out. So I do think making sure that it's a little bit more of an open dialogue throughout so that you understand what people's preferences are and like who you're getting into bed with. I think the other thing is like, I don't know, it's interesting. Like I feel like I've had less sex building this company than I ever have in my entire life, which is so ironic. But I also think, there's power in that, and also just making sure that, I don't know, I always say like dick is a distraction. So I just try to make sure that if it's like something worth pursuing, like it's really something that I feel strongly about. Otherwise, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I really don't. So it's kind of a crazy thing to navigate as a female founder. Conversely, my co-founder is engaged, about to be married. It's very interesting to see like how people operate, especially as they're moving through like the crazy world of entrepreneurship and what that looks like and how you make time to build a really strong partnership with someone.
100%. Female founder, all the power to you. I respect it. Moving forward, so we're going to go into our speed round here, Stephanie. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're just going to answer with one sentence or less. Perfect. What's your favorite life hack?
Long walks.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Only irrelevant people have no haters.
What's a red flag you look out for on a first date?
Someone asking to split the check.
If you had an extra hour in the day, how would you spend it?
I wish I had more time just to like focus on some of my wellness practices.
What's the most LA thing you've done the last month?
The most LA thing. I mean, I was like hiking Runyon almost every day until the past week or so.
Where was the worst date you ever went on?
Oh my God, this is a crazy question. The worst date I ever went on, I know I'm supposed to keep this to a sentence, but
You can go longer.
someone took me to dinner, forgot his wallet, and then we were going into the symphony. And then this is so bad, but I actually left because I was so uncomfortable.
Wow. That's a lot of like planning too and effort to go to like a symphony. And was that a first date?
It was, or maybe a second date.
Whatever happened to drinks for the first date? Who knows? Marry, fuck, kill, Miami, LA, New York.
Okay. Marry, New York, fuck, Miami, kill, LA.
What's the most ridiculous thing you've done to impress someone you liked?
I don't really like do things to impress people. I don't know. I kind of just like am me and you get what you see. I could be blanking on something. There may be something that I'm not really thinking of right now, but
It's fair. It's fair. If aliens landed on Earth and asked you to explain dating in Los Angeles, what would you say?
don't do it.
If you could only use one personal fave product for the rest of your life, what would it be?
100% pea. Our oil base with CBD. It's an actually magical product that you can use for multiple uses. Like I put it on sore muscles. I had a roommate at one point putting it under her eyes, claiming it was like helping with dark circles. And yeah, it really does enhance your orgasm. So I love pea. I know you're not supposed to pick a favorite child, but it's my fave.
And lastly, Burning Man. I know you had a traumatic experience, but how was it out of 10? Would you go again? And just quickly describe the experience as someone who hasn't gone.
So I've been 5 times. So I guess that qualifies me as a burner, which I don't necessarily fully own all of the time. I think every creative person should go at least once. It really does feel like you're on another planet and you can't explain it until you experience it for yourself.
I love it. So out of 10, Burning Man, 10?
So every year is different. Some years are really hard. So like the one that I mentioned where I had the UTI experience was one of my hardest burns by far. But if you have a good one, it's like a 12 out of 10. If you have a hard one, it can be like a 3 out of 10. So you kind of have to see what you get. And they always say the desert doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need.
I love that. Metaphor for life for sure. And maybe dating in LA, who knows?
Yeah.
But Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on. You are awesome. We love Personal Fav Co. Love what you're building. We will link everything in the bio. Follow us on our socials at The Talking Phase. Email us hello talkingphase@gmail.com and stay tuned for more. Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thank you.